You step off the plane, exhausted but excited. This is it, the start of your new life in Australia. You've spent months preparing for this moment. Your bags are packed with everything you own, your visa is stamped, and your dreams are bigger than ever. But just as you reach immigration, something feels off. The officer scans your passport, types something into the computer, and then a pause. A long, uncomfortable pause. Then they call for backup. Before you know it, you're pulled aside, taken to a small room, and handed a cup of water. Routine check, they say. But deep down, you know this is not routine. Your hands start sweating. Your heart pounds. You glance at your phone, wondering what went wrong. And then they ask a question that makes your stomach drop. Can we check your phone? You hesitate. But what choice do you have? You unlock it. They scroll through your messages, your emails, your bank transactions. And suddenly, they stop. They found what they were looking for. The officer looks up. Your visa is cancelled. You're going home. Asterisk. The rise of airport visa cancellations. This isn't just a hypothetical scenario. It's a reality that many international students face today. Australia's immigration policies have undergone significant changes in recent years, leading to stricter enforcement and, consequently, more visa cancellations upon arrival. In the period from October 2023 to August 2024, there was a 38% reduction in the number of study visas granted compared to the previous year. This decline is attributed to a series of policy changes aimed at controlling the influx of international students and addressing domestic concerns such as housing shortages and job competition. One of the most impactful measures is the government's decision to cap international student enrollments at 270,000 for 2025. This cap represents a significant reduction from previous years and is part of a broader strategy to manage migration levels and alleviate pressure on housing markets in major cities like Sydney and Melbourne. The implementation of this cap has led to a 40% reduction in Australian study visas, reflecting the government's intent to limit the number of international students entering the country. These policy changes have not only affected the number of visas granted, but have also led to an increase in visa cancellations. Students who arrive in Australia with the intention to work beyond the allowed hours, submit fraudulent documents, or enroll in institutions that do not meet accreditation standards are at a higher risk of having their visas cancelled. The Department of Home Affairs has reported a rise in visa cancellations across various cohorts, underscoring the government's commitment to enforcing immigration laws. The question arises, why are these cancellations happening, and what mistakes are students making? Many students, in an attempt to offset living expenses, engage in work that violates visa conditions. Others may fall prey to unscrupulous agents who provide fraudulent documentation, or they might unknowingly enroll in institutions that are not recognized by the government. These actions not only jeopardize their educational pursuits, but also contribute to the challenges faced by the Australian job market and economy. Understanding these risks is crucial for prospective international students. It's essential to stay informed about current immigration laws, adhere strictly to visa conditions, and ensure that all documentation is accurate and truthful. By doing so, students can safeguard their educational journey and contribute positively to the Australian community. The 60-hour work trap. Let me tell you about a real student who learned the hard way about breaking the rules in Australia. This student came from a small town overseas, eager to study and make a better life in Australia. But with high rent and expensive tuition, they decided to take on extra work to make ends meet. At first, it was just a few hours here and there, but soon they were working 60 hours a week, well beyond the 24-hour limit allowed for student visa holders. They thought it was harmless. More work meant more money, right? But what they didn't realize was that Australia has systems in place to track student employment. One day, after visiting their family back home, they returned to Australia, thinking it would be just another routine check. But when they were pulled aside by immigration officers, things quickly took a turn. The officers asked to see their phone and, within minutes, discovered bank deposits from multiple jobs. Their visa was cancelled on the spot, no warning, no chance to explain. They were told to leave immediately, no second chances. The students' dreams of studying in Australia were shattered, all because they worked too much. It's a harsh reminder that breaking the rules can cost you everything. Always stick to your visa conditions, or you risk losing your future in Australia. The fake documents disaster. Imagine spending thousands on your visa application, only to land in Australia and get deported before you even leave the airport. This has happened to students who unknowingly submitted fraudulent financial documents. Maybe they didn't have enough funds to prove they could support themselves, so they turned to an agent who helped by tweaking their bank statements. Or perhaps they were promised a guaranteed visa approval from a shady source desperate to make money. But here's the thing, Australia's immigration system is smarter than ever. With AI-based fraud detection, cross-referencing with international banks, and stricter document checks, authorities are catching fake applications faster than before. If you try to deceive the system, it'll catch up with you. And the consequences? Immediate visa cancellation and deportation. No refunds. No reapplication. And worst of all, a permanent mark on your record that can prevent you from entering Australia for years. This isn't an isolated incident. Students like Niran, who submitted false documents without knowing, are facing the same consequences. Many others have been caught in scams orchestrated by unethical agents or institutions. If you're considering studying in Australia, understand that fraud won't get you anywhere. Always ensure your documents are genuine and adhere to all visa conditions. Trying to cut corners could cost you not just your visa, but your future in Australia. The Ghost College Scam. Asterisk then, there's a case of students whose visas were linked to fake universities. They applied to a college that looked legitimate, got their confirmation of enrollment, and paid their fees. But when they arrived in Australia, something fell off. No real classes. No real teachers. Just a diploma mill designed to exploit visa loopholes. The government eventually cracked down, closing over 150 fake institutions in 2024. And who suffered the most? The students. Their visas were instantly cancelled, and their dreams of studying in Australia collapsed overnight. Some had already spent thousands on tuition. Some had even moved their entire families. And in the end, they were left with nothing but a deportation order. Asterisk. Why this crackdown matters for Australia. But here's the bigger picture. Why is Australia so determined to crack down on student visa fraud? It's not just about enforcing rules for the sake of it. It's also about protecting jobs and maintaining a fair labor market. Many international students come to Australia with the primary intention of studying. However, a significant number end up working long hours, sometimes far beyond the legal limit, by taking on extra shifts, working off the books, or even accepting jobs meant for locals. When these students work illegally, they create an uneven playing field. Local Australians, who have paid taxes all their lives and built their careers here, suddenly find themselves competing for the same shifts. Often, these student workers are willing to accept lower wages, making it even harder for citizens to secure employment. Consider a local worker who has been diligent, contributing to society through their taxes and steady work, only to face fewer opportunities because employers might opt for someone who violates the rules without facing immediate consequences. For these citizens, it feels like their hard-earned jobs are being taken away, contributing to rising frustrations and a sense of injustice. And it's not just about the immediate loss of work opportunities. When international students overstep visa conditions and are caught, the fallout is devastating for them as well. They don't just lose a job, they lose their entire chance to study and build a future in Australia. Their careers, education, and even their future ability to travel to Australia can be permanently tarnished by a single mistake. This strict crackdown, therefore, serves a dual purpose. It protects the integrity of Australia's labour market and sends a clear message to those who might be tempted to bypass the rules. When violations are met with swift, severe penalties, it reinforces the idea that the system is designed to be fair, not just for international students, but for every Australian worker counting on a fair share of the opportunities. The reality of studying in Australia. Here's what international students need to understand. Australia exports education. It's one of the country's biggest industries and a major source of revenue. But make no mistake, education in Australia is a business, not a charity. When you decide to study here, you're entering into an investment. Unlike some countries where education might be heavily subsidized or free, Australia expects you to pay your way. That means tuition fees, living expenses, and everything else that comes with being in a competitive, market-driven system. If you're coming to Australia to study, you need a strong financial foundation. You can't expect that working a few part-time shifts here and they will cover the steep cost of tuition and high living expenses. The reality is that part-time work is meant to help with day-to-day costs, not to fund an entire education. Even if you manage to pick up extra shifts, remember that the rules are strict. Working beyond the allowed hour can have severe consequences. There is no room for cutting corners or hoping that extra hours will go unnoticed by immigration authorities. And then there's the matter of passion. Genuine interest in your field of study is critical. Australia isn't just a stepping stone for full-time work, or a place to send money home. If your primary goal is to work as much as possible, or if you see studying merely as a means to an end, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. The system is designed to reward those who commit to learning and academic growth, not those who treat education as a secondary benefit to supplement their income. This isn't just about following rules. It's about understanding the value of the educational experience. When you enroll in an Australian institution, you are paying for a high-quality education that has a reputation worldwide. That reputation comes at a cost, and it demands that you, as an international student, meet certain financial and academic standards. The government is cracking down harder than ever on those who abuse the system. Every year, thousands of students who try to bypass these requirements by overworking or falsifying documents end up being sent home, their dreams dashed by a system that prioritizes fairness and integrity. So, if you're considering studying in Australia, make sure you have the resources and the genuine desire to learn. Understand that the system is built for those who are prepared, financially, academically, and personally, to invest in their future. Your education here is a valuable asset, and only those who truly commit to it will succeed without risking everything. How to protect yourself. Asterisk. So, how do you avoid getting deported at the airport? First, never exceed your work limits. Even if no one seems to be watching, your tax records and bank deposits can be checked at any time. Second, only use registered migration agents. If someone promises you a guaranteed visa, run. If your documents aren't 100% real, don't submit them. It's not worth the risk. Third, make sure your university is legitimate. If it seems too easy, it probably is. If the school has no real classes, leave. Because once it gets shut down, so does your visa. And finally, understand why you're here. If you're here to study, then study. If you're here to work, you're in the wrong place. Asterisk. The dream of studying in Australia is still possible. But in 2025, it's harder than ever. Work too much? Visa cancelled. Submit fake documents? Visa cancelled. Enroll in the wrong school? Visa cancelled. One mistake, and your future is over before it even begins. So, if you're planning to study in Australia, be careful, be smart, and most importantly, be prepared. Because at the end of the day, the only person who can truly protect your future is you. Asterisk. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Have a story about studying in Australia? Drop it in the comments. Let's help each other navigate this journey together